had a couple videos in the past that hit on this topic, but I'm going to kind of go in a little further into depth here. Had the opportunity today, rain day, and we're going to do some videos outside, but obviously, like we were saying, we're in the truck today. I'm seeing more and more of this this myth, if you will. There's a huge craze out there, if you will, about focusing a lot of attention on buck bedding areas, and how and it is a very important step. It's important that you have to know how to determine a buck bed, what is a buck bed, what it takes to make a buck bed, and where these buck bedding areas should be. It's a huge tool, but it's being mistreated as far as trying to encompass or trying to know which buck is bedding in which spot at what time. I'd rather see folks spending their time and their hard-earned money knowing that they are creating secluded areas, and why those secluded buck bedding areas much smaller than a doe beds. If you follow along with my hub style bedding design, you'll see that my buck bedding areas are a quarter of the size, half the size, a quarter of the size a lot of times as my doe bedding areas. And the reason that is it's just a drama. You don't want the option to allow that area to have as much drama in a buck bedding area as you do as a doe bedding area. So that's where it needs to make sense. You need to strategically put these in the right spots, but that's where it needs to end. I see a lot of folks that I'm visiting, a lot of calls, a lot of topics of discussion, a lot of stuff out in the industry right now, that guys are, hanging trail cameras in these areas, real close to these areas, whether that's even a cell cam. And there's a couple things that come with that. They're trying to pinpoint which deer is in that bed and why he's there, and it becomes a focus point that is taking away from other projects that you need to be concerned with. The other projects that you need to be concerned with, the other steps that you need to be concerned with, are your movements as far as what you're doing, not so much who is in that buck bed area, that secluded area. So with that said, I think what needs to happen is I really recommend folks look at this step as a huge importance. Is don't, even though that these cameras are wireless cameras, even if you feel that you can get in and out of that area, you know as well as I do that if it's a traditional trail camera, a carded camera that you have to go in and pull these cards out of, it's a tool that's being used. It's a huge tool in the world, and I've got videos on this about why trail cameras are so important. But those trail cameras have to stay out of these buck bedding areas. So we're creating these areas. I design these properties. I put these buck beds in certain areas. I explain to the customers why they need to be there. The customer understands why they be there, and then it becomes let's put a camera. Not my recommendation. My recommendations are always hanging these cameras between your doe bedding. You're hunting the backside of the does. You're hanging these trail cameras on your licking branches, and not in the bedding areas. And the reason for that is it's a temptation. It's a piece of the puzzle that you want to reach out and you want to find more information about when you're going into the fall. And the later that it gets into the fall, the more that temptation builds, because whether that's you were successful early season, let's say, and that other mature buck has moved in, you're getting a bunch of let's say dark pictures, after dark pictures, and you're really wanting to know who's in there, where he's at, so you think that you are aiding your efforts into try to harvest that buck. The fact of the matter is by putting too much pressure on that buck bed that you had, that I designed for you, or that you reached out and you really studied and you found, and this goes for the state land buck bedding areas as well, or the public ground areas, is you now are intruding in those areas. The reason that they're a buck bed, the reason that they're placed in these areas, is because they have to have all of the ingredients. They have to have the browse. They have to meet the area that has to be secluded, has to be away from the doe drama. They're there for a reason. And then what happens is, time and time again, is these trail cameras, this pressure starts being put closer to that, because once you're in there, post-season scouting, you're going in there checking these trail cameras, putting them too tight. What you're seeing is everybody wants to see, like, it's like a deer number thing. Everybody wants to see high deer numbers. I don't want to see high deer numbers. I want to see the right deer. I don't need to see, I've seen a billion does in my life over time. I don't need to see another doe. I want to see the right mature buck at the right time. That's my strategy. That's why I set these farms up. That's why we hunt behind does, not in front of them. That all ties into it. The buck bedding areas, you walk into them, and like I was saying, is the draw is as you go into that area, find it, it's all rubbed up, is because that buck that is using it, whatever age structure it is, more so when it's a mature buck area, he's getting up out of his bed. They have to feed 5 times in a 24-hour period. Keep that in mind. So he's getting up out of his bed, he's walking 10 feet, 5 feet, eating some browse, and he's laying back down again. In the meantime, every time he's up on his feet, the closer it is to the end of October, first week of November, he's rubbing everything that he's not eating, he's tearing apart in that area. He's just irritated, and that's the normal mature buck mentality that happens. So them areas are very attractive for people for hunters to want to get internal of. They want to see it. To me, I want you out of it. I want to keep you out of it. I want to do everything education-wise to make sure you understand that the reason that buck bed is there is because you created it. It was there in the right spot as a strategic placement. Now what you need to do is you need to stay out of it. You need to keep the cameras out of it. You need to know that it's there. You need to know why it's there, like I said, where it's at, pinned on your aerials. You know how far your tree stands are away from it. You know your access and your exits are right, and you know why it's there, and it needs to be kept that way. Time and time again is I see trail cameras that are pictures that are sent to me, or I'm seeing these on these properties as I'm walking. A gentleman just last week, we were walking a property, and he goes, yep, that trail camera right there produces a lot of pictures. And I said, that we were talking, that was an area that, it's got to be a buck bedding area. He said, man, I get a lot of pictures. And as we started talking, I said, are they a lot of daylight pictures? And he's like, well, they are early season. And then, the later it goes in the season, as they're all dark pictures. But I know he's in here. He's in here, and and it's not a wireless camera. So he's in there, intruding too close to that area, getting those cameras out. And if you tie the pieces of the puzzles together at the end of that conversation, he understood the reason that, and this was stuff he talked himself right out of it, is what he did. And perfect situation, perfect example of putting too much pressure, getting too caught up into them rubs and all that buck sign that's in there that you find, whether it's post-season or after you create it during the summer, when you walk in there and it's like, wow, that worked. And then the later it gets in the season, when the tags aren't punched, you just start dialing that up, the anticipation level, and everybody starts sucking in too close to those areas. And when that happens, it's game over. You've totally ruined it. Something that you've built, something that you strategized, something that you put so much time and effort in thinking about when you built it, is now being ruined. And it's being ruined year after year after year, fall after fall after fall. And it is something that once you see it as much as I do, it really makes sense. Now, I encourage you to do is the next time that you're out on your farm into those areas, you just keep in mind that that has to stay. The reason that it's there, if it's working, is, like I said, it should be tore up. If it's a buck bedding area that you placed and it's not tore up, it's not performing to its fullest extent. There's a piece of the puzzle missing somewhere that has to be fixed, and usually, a lot of the times, I see it's a pressure issue. You're too close. It's not the secluded area that you created, because you are in there intruding, and you have to go in there. You want these pictures, and these pictures need to come from your transition areas. Your cameras need to be placed there, and you have to know the power of knowing, the power of using these trail cameras in transition areas on licking branches, let's say, in front of tree stands, is because you want to know the mission of a trail camera to begin with, wherever it's at, is you want to know the movement. Well, if it's in a bedding area and you're getting the bedding, you're getting the bedding pictures of these does and bucks, and nighttime after non-hunting hours of these bucks in these areas that you can't hunt to begin with. Why do you need a picture of them? You know they're in there. You need a picture of them, where you're going to hunt, when they're there, how much they're utilizing these licking branches, water holes, pinch points. And that's, to me, that's why I'm not a huge fan of hanging these cameras on the food plots, is because that's a no-brainer. You have your bedding area and you have your destination food locations. You know they're going to use them. The object is to figure out what transition area they're using to get to those locations, to and from those locations, so you can hunt it. You don't want to be on the food. You don't want to be in their bedding area. That's the transition area. That's the power of knowing where you're at. That's how you need to use these trail cameras. So keeping that, busting that buck bedding myth of you have to be in there, you have to hunt these. The further you get to the rut, the perfect spot is a buck bedding area, hunting these bedding areas. I'm not a guy to promote buck bed area hunting, bedding area hunting in general during the rut. I'm a huge promoter of hunting these areas where it can be hunted during, used as cruising spots. Once you're internal of those areas, there's no getting out. It's very hard to get into them to begin with. You hear guys, taking climbers in with them, hanging tree stands in the bedding areas in the middle of the night, and then going back in, or taking them in real early with them and hunting there, or getting back in there. The problem with them is that's a one-shot shop, if you will. That's you have a one window to get it done. If you don't get it done, you just blew. You got to get out of there, and the chances of you getting in and out of those bedding areas undetected is slim to none. So that's on a hunting platform. Now you take into consideration going in and out of these spots because you want these pictures, you want to see these rubs of these buck bedding areas, and before you know it, they're not buck bedding areas anymore. Will they use them when you're not in there? Sure they will, but you want them to use them areas all the time. Now in the summer, they're going to transition out of them areas. They're not going to be used as much. But the reason that them areas, the buck bedding areas, have the sign that they have is because they're there. Hopefully, if they're working right, you have the sign there. The reason they're not making them scrapes in the summer months. They're making them rubs in the summer months that are internal of these bedding areas. They're making these rubs in those areas because they're doing it in the fall. Perfect, recipe. That's what you want. You're not worried about where they're bedding in the summer. You're worried about where they are bedding during the hunting season, and you're worried about, you need to focus the attention of how to hunt the transition areas going to and from those areas, not what they're doing when they're inside those bedding areas. You need to be focused on the transition areas, which side of that bed they're going, which way they're going, how they're getting out of that, which destination feed location they're using more. You don't need pictures of them, and this is another video coming down the pipe here, but you don't need pictures of them out on the food plots. That's a no-brainer. You know they're going to be there. You need to find the areas where they're going through. That's where you need to hunt. So take the pressure off these buck bedding areas. That all ties into site access, how to get in and out of hunt these locations, But put these trail cameras, keep them out of the buck bedding areas, keep them out of the right at the nose of these buck bedding areas. And the reason is even if it's a cell cam, what happens is these batteries are going to eventually die. These the folks that don't have the cell cams are going in and out of them to pull the cards, and you can see where this all ties together. So big step that I'd like to see more focus on. Really, helping folks understand that that's a huge part of it, especially on these small parcels, is you just don't have that room for error. You can't afford to have that misstep. It's just it's not just that it happens once, it happens time and time again. And when that happens time and time again on these farms, you're in these areas that just don't consistently produce. And the reason that is it's pressure. It's all about pressure and getting in and out of those areas and making those buck beds be these secluded areas. Like we said, the reason that you build them to be secluded is to stay secluded. That's the reason that they're there. That's the reason why you need to hunt them. That's the way you need to treat them. We need to stay out of them. And time again on these farms, this is what I'm seeing going in. And a lot of this is recommendations from some guys that are out there creating these properties on with these customers how to do this. And once I'm able to, just like that gentleman I was telling you about, when he was explaining to me, this is a buck bed, here's my camera, this is the tree I had my camera on. Early season, I had all these pictures, early season being in October, and then all of a sudden all these pictures that I have are now dark, and it must be because of the the October lull. Well, it's not. It is the October lull, but the October lull is created by pressure, and it's us. It's human pressure. So all ties into it. Big step. And if you got any questions on that, guys, about where to put those, why I feel so strongly about that, feel free to reach out, and I'll explain that a little more in depth. I've got a couple of videos here that we'll be doing, weather permitting, that I'll show you the power of that. Is staying out of those areas and really treating those as the buck beds that they are. And I think you'll have a lot more success staying out of those areas and promoting them, and that way they're good throughout the entire fall. Thanks.